Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're compiling all of our videos on hidden secrets in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We're looking at our favorite Easter eggs, interactions, details, and mechanics that some players may be unaware of. Before we continue, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Link's favorite tunes. One of the game's most charming Easter eggs started making the rounds soon after launch. It appears Link is more than familiar with the soundtracks of his own series, as when he cooks, you might hear him humming familiar tunes. Players have noticed some classic tracks, such as Zelda's Lullaby, Epona's Song, and the franchise's main theme. However, he'll also hum newer songs like Ballad of the Goddess and Cass's theme. This franchise has always been great at incorporating its cherished music in different ways, so it was nice to see these songs pop up here, on top of it being adorable to boot. Recycling a name. Tears of the Kingdom gives players a new bag of tricks to play with, though the one you likely use most is Ultrahand. It can pick up many objects, but is also used to weld things together to create vehicles and contraptions. However, Ultrahand is not an original name. Nintendo recycled it from a toy it produced before becoming a game company, first released in 1966. It was actually created by Gunpei Yokoi, who also created the iconic Game Boy. It has been referenced in several Nintendo releases, though this is the second instance of it in a Zelda game. In Majora's Mask 3D, you can spot one hanging on a wall in the Clocktown Bomb Shop. The Shrine of Resurrection. For any players feeling nostalgic about Breath of the Wild, the sequel rewards you for taking the time to explore the original game's opening area. If you head back to the Shrine of Resurrection on the Great Plateau, you'll see its entrance is covered by vines. Inside is a healing pool, but in the back, there's a hole that drops you into a small Yiga clan hideout. Link will be attacked by a couple of them should he try to steal their bananas, and the Steward construct will give you a new Schema Stone for defeating them. Right next door, you can also revisit the Temple of Time to earn the Nostalgic Fabric, which models your paraglider after the one in the first game. Cororo Rocks. Koroks are back in Tears of the Kingdom, either to your delight or your displeasure. Other than the heavy backpack-toting Koroks who need help reaching their friends, how you find them hasn't changed all that much. One of the common hiding places of these forest dwellers is in a pattern of rocks, which requires you to find a missing one to complete it. However, if you don't feel like searching and you happen to have a weapon or shield with a rock fused to it already, that will also do the trick. You don't even have to drop the item, just step into the empty space while it's equipped. Divine Helms. If you used the champion amiibos in Breath of the Wild, you'd earn their respective character's Divine Helm. These masks resemble each divine beast and give you a nice perk. They appear again in Tears of the Kingdom, but are unlocked through a side quest after completing each of the 4 main dungeons. If Link is wearing one, the sage from the corresponding region will also don a mask, just the ancient version of it that we see sages of the past wearing. It's a nice aesthetic touch, but it's also cool to see another connection between sages of the present and those of the past. Returning home. In Breath of the Wild, you could fulfill a side quest to earn yourself a house in Henno Village. As soon as players gained access to the town in Tears, the first thing many of us did was check back up on it. In between games, Zelda either took it over or moved in with Link. The photos across the wall all connect to the Lucky Clover Gazette side quests, which has Link following up on possible princess sightings. If your Switch has save data for the first game's Champions Ballad DLC, you'll also spot that group shot of the heroes. Finally, going down the nearby well reveals Zelda's secret study, a chest that holds Link's hairband from the first game, and a diary that tells you where to get a new champion's tunic. Familiar styles. Just like Breath of the Wild, the game offers plenty of armor sets and masks that reference past games in the series. The only difference is that in Tears, you don't have to buy DLC or amiibo to earn them. It was a lot of fun tracking down each piece of the awesome Fierce Deity armor through a side quest, though many others are found in the depths. You can dress this Link like your favorite incarnation, whether he be the Hero of Winds or the Hero of Twilight. Items like Midna's helmet and Majora's Mask also come with welcome benefits. The Armor of Awakening is a nice new addition, which humorously pays homage to the cartoony Link's Awakening remake. The Lone Guardian. Due to their aggressive behavior and the stressful music that accompanied them, we weren't too bummed to learn that Guardians don't appear in Tears of the Kingdom. In fact, the majority of Sheikah tech from the first game, including the divine beasts and towers, are gone without an explanation. However, there is one remnant of the Sheikah's machines, and it appears in a pretty fitting place. If you head to the Hateno Ancient Tech Lab and climb to the top, you'll see a deactivated Guardian tied to the roof. There's even a Korok hiding on its head. Champion themes.
Here I go!
We love a scaling theme, and each of the 4 main dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom has one. More instruments and parts are added to the music with each objective you complete, but one of the coolest aspects of these pieces of music is how they blend in themes of the champions from Breath of the Wild. While progressing, you'll hear notes from the themes for Daruk, Rivali, Mipha, and Urbosa, as well as music from their divine beasts within each of the dungeons from their respective regions. Not only was it just really pleasing to hear, but it was a subtle way to show those heroes had not been forgotten.
Can you believe this view? Just look at all those delectable rocks sprinkled on those mountains. Mighty tasty.
Here I go!
The Lonely Gudo. In the sewers beneath Gerudo Town, you'll see several messages in bottles floating down the stream. They're each from Caliban, a lonely Gerudo looking for true love. She won't give you a side quest when you speak to her, you can't carry any bottles up to her, and after beating the Lightning Temple, she'll still sit in the same spot and mope. At first, we thought her bottles were meant to hint where the Gerudo shelter was. But you can actually fuse one of these bottles to a shield, or the pot hanging from the well. Or if it's close enough, recall it to where she sits above. Once you show it to her, she'll declare Link the Vo of her dreams and give you creamy heart soup every day you visit her. Gloom Immune Steeds. With pools of gloom spread across the depths, traversing can be troublesome. Of course, there are multiple ways to avoid being inflicted with the status effect, such as building Zonai vehicles, acquiring some gloom-resistant armor, or making the proper meals. However, another way the game doesn't tell you is by riding a Sty Horse. Ha! You'll find these skeletal steeds at several points, and they're always worth grabbing since the gloom has no effect on them. More importantly, since there's no sunlight in the depths, the Sty Horses won't disappear at daybreak like they do on the surface. Purras Experiments. Purah was one of the more entertaining side characters in Breath of the Wild. She was well over a century old, yet trapped in the body of a child from a failed age reversal experiment. She seemed to naturally age in between both games, but that gap didn't match up with other elements that showed how much time had passed. That's because she didn't age naturally.
What exactly happened?
In her room at Lookout Landing, you can find her diary, which leads you on a scavenger hunt for other volumes at different spots in Hyrule. The third volume, found at the Henno Tech Lab, explains she performed another experiment. Only this time, the results were exactly what she wanted.
Yes.
A Pirate's Life. Breath of the Wild featured a subtle nod to the Wind Waker with Lurelin Village, the layout of which had a lot in common with Outset Island. If there was ever any doubt, Nintendo made it abundantly clear in Tears. In the sequel, the seaside town comes under attack of pirates until Link can clear them out. Although these pirates are really just monsters, it's a nice reference to how Link's world was turned upside down by a pirate visit in the earlier game. Additionally, after you save the village, you gain access to several side quests. One earns you the Island Lobster shirt, the same top Link is seen wearing in Wind Waker before his grandmother gives him the classic green tunic. The Blood Moon.
When its red glow shines upon the land, the aimless spirits of slain monsters return to flesh.
Similar to the first game, the Blood Moon cutscene is narrated by Zelda. These happen pretty frequently, so many players may have gotten used to skipping them. However, at a very specific point in the story, it will change. Once you've completed the 4 main dungeons and make it to Hyrule Castle, it's revealed the Zelda people have been seeing and speaking with all across the kingdom is really one of Ganondorf's puppets.
After all, this place will be the last thing you ever see.
After this reveal and subsequent fight, Zelda and her narration will be missing from every Blood Moon cutscene. Not only does that show it was never really her speaking to begin with, but it's a clever way to play with our expectations. Weapons from ages past. Similar to armor sets, there are a ton of weapons in Tears of the Kingdom that reference past entries. If you're looking for a little Twilight Princess love, the Dusk Bow can be found at the top of Hyrule Castle, while the Dusk Claymore is found in Typhlo Ruins. The Fierce Deity Sword, an amiibo exclusive in the first game, is earned after getting the accompanying armor set. Many others are found in chests within the depths. These include the Boomerang and First Shield from Wind Waker, the Big Goron Sword from Ocarina of Time, and even the Sword of the Hero from the NES original. And if you break them, you can purchase them again at Bargainer Statues. The Reflective World. The depths are a mysterious place that, strangely, mirror the surface above. It didn't take too long for players to notice that light routes underground are at the same spots as shrines up above, and that their names are just backwards. Mountains become valleys, while bodies of water are impassable walls. But it isn't just the topography of the surface that the depths mirror. Bargainer statues can be found at the same spot as goddess statues, Leviathan bones correspond to dark skeletons underneath, and each major town sits above a grand mine. This has actually made searching for certain things, like shrines, much easier. The Return of Flower Blight Ganon. Nicknamed Flower Blight Ganon by fans, Magda was an intense gardener in Breath of the Wild. If Link were to step on the flowers she planted around a shrine too many times, she'd unleash a fury he had never experienced. Magda returns in tears through one of the Lucky Clover Gazette quests. And you can have a bit of fun with her without fear of repercussions, other than a few insults. If you try to take her tools, she'll tell you to keep your grubby hands off. Step on her flowers again, she'll chastise you for hurting such beautiful petals. What's funny is that she'll always say her insults are what the plants and tools could say if they were able to talk. For extra fun, try overwatering them or lighting them on fire. Fish in the Sky. If you've played any other entries in the series, looking at the map should ring multiple bells. All across Hyrule are locations named after characters and places from previous entries. For Tears, Nintendo took one of them and added an extra cool Easter egg. While doing the Zora part of the main story, you'll be told to find the Land of the Skyfish. This refers to a fish-shaped landmass in the sky called Floating Scales Island. What's interesting is that it floats directly above Tal Tal Peak, which gets its name from Tal Tal Mountain Range, the last major area in Link's Awakening. In that game, just north of this mountain range, you'll find the egg of the Windfish. Monuments to Fallen Heroes. Ganon and his actions have claimed a lot of lives in this Hyrule, and you can find monuments to their sacrifice in several spots across the map. At places like Fort Hateno and the Great Plateau, where the Guardians hit the hardest during the Calamity, Zelda has placed stone slabs in honor of their memory. You could find King Roam's grave in Breath of the Wild, but it appears the princess revisited it to leave behind her father's sword. After Queen Sonia's death, one of the Dragon's Tears cutscenes shows Rauru mourning at her grave. Despite how much time has passed, you can still find this grave in the Forgotten Temple, along with a few Sundalions. Koume and Kotake.
On behalf of the Gerudo, for taking so long to accept your repeated invitations.
First appearing in Ocarina of Time, Koume and Kotake are twin witches and the surrogate mothers of Ganondorf. They've appeared a couple of other times, though never played as big a role as they did here. Tears of the Kingdom pays homage to these villains through Phantom Ganon. Eagle-eyed players noticed inscriptions on the weapons he drops, which, when translated, read Koume and Kotake. There's another well-hidden reference to them in the Show of Fealty memory. While Ganondorf swears loyalty to Rauru, you can spot two Gerudo on either side of him. One of their masks holds a red gemstone and the other a blue one, calling back to the witches' elemental prowess. Their skin is also much greener than other Gerudo, matching with their ocarina appearance. Fallen Soldier Weapons. In our first video, we talked about finding gravestones of fallen heroes, including King Roam, Queen Sonia, and the many who lost their lives during the Calamity. As some of you pointed out in the comments, that last one has an extra layer to it. Within the depths, you'll often come across spirits of Hylian soldiers who offer pristine weapons. However, underneath the monuments installed by Princess Zelda at places like Fort Hateno, you can find a group of them as opposed to one. It's a clever way to reflect a spot where many died, but earning non-corrupted weapons from it is a nice bonus. Portable Pot Power. Since the game's launch, players have been coming up with all kinds of creative ways to use Zonai devices other than how they were intended. One such device is the one-use portable pot, meant for cooking on the go when not near a campfire. Many have found that these actually make great socket joints, giving certain parts of their creations more flexibility. But there's another useful benefit from using it as a cooking device. When operating a Zonai creation, Link's battery will eventually run out. But if you take out a portable pot and make a meal or elixir, your battery will automatically fill up, without you having to use a Zonai charge. Zelda's Torch and Murals. While this detail isn't exactly hidden, it's a testament to Nintendo's skill at keeping track of all its threads, even the smallest ones. At the beginning of the game, Link and Zelda are separated after Zelda accidentally travels back in time, saving her from a nasty fall. When you're finally ready to fight Ganondorf and plunge further underground, you'll find the torch Zelda was carrying when she fell. Prior to that, you can also now destroy the boulders blocking some of the murals seen during the opening, revealing Zelda's draconic fate. Neither of these things necessarily needed to be there, but it's cool that Nintendo took the time to include them. Fi's theme. As was the case with Breath of the Wild, there are moments in Tears of the Kingdom where the Master Sword emits the same sound effect as Fi, the spirit companion from Skyward Sword. But there's another, more subtle reference to the character in a scene towards the beginning of the game. After Link completes the opening area, he drops the broken Master Sword through time, where it ends up with Zelda. The music that plays during this cutscene includes notes from Fi's theme, just reworked to fit with this new composition. The Gerudo's Prisoners. Hidden underneath the sands of the Gerudo Desert are some pretty disturbing places that hint towards the Gerudo's treatment of their enemies in the past. One such place is simply called the Ancient Prison Ruins, located in the Palu Wasteland. Exploring this prison leads to the Chichim Shrine, but it's one of those Zelda locations that tell us a lot about the world through its environment. It naturally consists mostly of prison cells, many of which hold a Gibdo. It's implied the Gibdo were once prisoners of the Gerudo in life, and it looks like their treatment was anything but humane. Arrows and weapons sticking out of them hint towards the method of execution. Helping Addison.
Whoa!
All across Hyrule, no matter the environment, you can find Addison placing his signs advertising for Hudson construction. With a station of building materials nearby, the idea is to help him stabilize the sign for some small rewards. However, there are a few much simpler ways to go about this depending on the shape and height of the sign. If you don't feel like building, the Zonai stakes and hover blocks are excellent alternatives. Additionally, depending on the sign, even a horse can sometimes work, but that method is a lot less effective than just using a Zonai device. Tulin's homage. Tulin has quickly become everyone's favorite sage thanks to his handy gust ability while flying and his expertise in popping fools in the head with his bow. But he also has strong characterization as a wholesome little lad just trying to make his people proud. One subtle nod to his continued adorableness is seen in his weaponry. Once Teba gives his son Revali's great eagle bow, you can see part of the late champion's scarf tied to the weapon. Even more heartwarming is the Easter egg with his quiver. Attached to it are two feathers, a white one from his father and a pink one from his mother Saki. Changing of the Lizalfos. Lizalfos are a pretty straightforward enemy, though their speed can still be a little annoying when in big groups. Like several other monsters, they can also come in different elemental types. In certain locations, like the Gerudo Desert where days are hot and nights are cold, the Lizalfos will actually change their elements. Comes nighttime, you can watch as fire Lizalfos dig into the ground only for ice ones to emerge a moment later. How you fight them doesn't exactly change much, but it's one of the many, many interesting ways in which this world is constantly moving and changing. Gleo Statues. There are a handful of King Gleoks in Tears of the Kingdom, and having access to fire, ice, and electric attacks makes them a fairly big challenge. You can find one of them in the depths underneath Typhlo Ruins, who adds to the challenge with Gloom Infliction. Its den is hidden since Typhlo Ruins are on an island, meaning the water of the surface is an impassable wall in the depths. However, it's the den itself that has us curious. Around the arena are 4 statues of the main races: Gerudo, Goron, Zora, and Rito. But there isn't one for the Zonai, who presumably built everything here. We're not sure why these statues were chosen, but they certainly pique our interest. Muddle Bud Effects. The Muddle Bud is one of the cooler additions in Tears of the Kingdom. Hitting an enemy with one, whether it be thrown or attached to an arrow, will cause them to attack their allies. Depending on how you use it, it can lead to a variety of fun and useful outcomes. If you hit a battle talus with one, it will humorously hurl the bokoblins riding it into the sky. Since it causes an enemy to grow more aggressive and attack close up, hitting a Lionel as it's about to shoot you will stop them from using their bow. Additionally, if you attach one to an 8-fold long blade, which produces a wind blast every swing, that blast will now turn a group of united enemies into an all-out brawl. Removing the hood. In Breath of the Wild, the only way you could change the look of your armor was by dyeing each piece different colors in Henno Village. The dye shop is, of course, back in Tears of the Kingdom, but there's one aesthetic change you'll have to find elsewhere. A new character not seen in the first game is the excitable fashionista Cece, whose store can be found near the dye shop.
More?
After you've completed the mayoral election side quest, you can then go visit her for some fashion advice. If you happen to be wearing the Hylian hood, she'll give you the option to lower it, showing off Link's luscious locks. Musical stakes. We've mentioned how stakes are great resources for helping with Addison's signs, but they also make for fantastic musical instruments. Depending on how high or low a stake sticks out of the ground, hitting it produces a different musical note. Since realizing this, players have naturally started putting on their own concerts. We've seen impressive renditions of classic Zelda songs as well as recreations of popular music. With enough time and effort, there's no telling what kinds of Rube Goldberg-like music machines we'll see in the future. Lake Seria. Similar to the first game, the Great Hyrule Forest is shrouded in a mystical fog. Even after you free the Great Deku Tree, navigating it can be tricky. Lake Seria, named for the forest sage from Ocarina of Time, can be hard to get to since the fog never disappears, even if you're diving to it from above. To reach it, you must first get to the Ninja's Shrine. From there, you can see that one of the many trees around you has some silent shrooms growing on it. Using that as a starting point, you'll follow similar trees until you reach the lake. On the island in the middle, Link can earn a Forest Dweller's Bow, which can fire 3 arrows at once. Playing with fire. There are some mechanics in Tears of the Kingdom that you can really only find by experimenting. Link can use campfires to cook single items unless they have a cooking pot, as well as sit to pass the time. Naturally, rain makes them useless, but there are a couple of ways around that. Link can place a campfire inside the entrance of a shrine, which can be very helpful if you exit one, see it's raining, and want to pass the time so you don't have to deal with it. You can also create a fueled fire with wood, flint, and a pine cone. Both methods will protect the campfire from going out in a downpour. Ganondorfs Horse. Ugh. In Breath of the Wild, players were told through a side quest of a giant horse they could tame, which highly resembled Ganondorf's steed from Ocarina of Time. Well, it appears again in Tears of the Kingdom, but there's no quest to point you in its direction. You'll find it to the southeast of Henno Village, on an outcrop in between Henno Bay and Deep Back Bay. Though it's taller than your average mount, that's hard to tell from afar. It takes around 2 stamina bars to stop it from bucking, but it's definitely worth getting thanks to its high strength stat. Twofaced Statues. The Bargainer statues, most of which are found in the depths, raise a lot of questions. Who are the spirits or deities tied to these monuments? And should we actually believe that they're friendly ferrymen for Pose, the lost souls scattered about the new area? We'd already be asking these questions, but an Easter egg just adds to the mystery. Some Bargainer statues are quite tall, with full bodies not buried in the ground. On the backside of these, you'll find an unsettling, monstrous-looking face. That's never a good sign, and it makes us wonder about all the souls we've traded in. Disarming flux constructs. Coming in 3 levels of difficulty, the Flux constructs are overworld mini-bosses similar to Lynel's and Hinox's, and you can have a lot of fun with them using Link's new abilities. Using Ultrahand is the best way to fight them since Link can pull apart the various blocks that make up their bodies. However, pulling out specific blocks leads to different effects. If Link removes the final block in its arms or legs, it will have no hands or feet to smash him with. Ultrahand isn't the only way to humiliate them either. You can also fuse to steal and attack them with their own body parts. Bloopy Burrow. Bloopies are silly little critters that drop rupees when they're hit, and scurry away to lead Link to a cave. You can usually only find them on the surface, with there being one exception in the depths, Bloopy Burrow. This one-of-a-kind location is found directly beneath Satori Mountain and serves as its reflection, which puts it right in the middle of a truly massive pit. There are a ton of bloopies here, which makes it a great place to earn some extra money. There's also a giant cherry blossom tree here, which is linked to their guardian, the Satori Spirit, and just like the bloopies, is the only plant native to the surface that's found in the depths. Final level music.
End this hero's life, my dark servant. Cut him down.
Due to the immense love fans have for its soundtracks, The Legend of Zelda does musical Easter eggs better than any series. The track for Hyrule Castle features a string of descending notes you're more than likely to have heard before. That's because they were also used in the music for the game's trailers. However, these notes are also used, albeit with an entirely different tone, for the Goron area in Breath of the Wild. The race's home is Death Mountain, but the setting predates them. Back in the NES original, Death Mountain was the final level that culminated in a fight against Ganon. Even back then, you could hear the same melody that's used here, tying Ganon's history together. Patricia's Coordinates. Patricia is a special, psychic sand seal that belongs to Riju, leader of the Gerudo. As ridiculous as that sounds, it's actually exceptionally helpful. Feeding her a splash fruit will give you the coordinates to a side quest in the Gerudo region. You can keep going back to her until you've found all of them, but she won't stop there. Even with the region finished 100%, Patricia will always be left with one set of coordinates. These actually lead to Ganondorf's final location beneath Hyrule Castle. Not only does Patricia want you to beat the game, but the villain is Gerudo, so she technically isn't wrong to send you there.
Allow me to show you the world that was and will be again when I have been restored.
Poe placement. Once an enemy and now a currency, you can find Poe souls scattered all over the depths. Finding huge numbers of them underneath ruins on the surface makes a lot of sense, but there are certain Poes whose placement seems much more specific than others. Directly underneath Gerudo Desert's Arbiter's grounds is a cemetery swarming with Gibdo, but there are also single Poes found in coffins, implying that soul's significance. Underneath Lover's Pond of the Faron region is a heart-shaped island in the middle of a lake with 2 souls on it. That love story could not have had a happy ending. All in the Name. Nintendo created many of the new NPCs for Tears of the Kingdom, it had a lot of fun in making their names puns. The most obvious examples are the members of the Stable Trotters. Mastro, Violin, Beats, Piper, and Eustace all have names that point to their position in the group. That last one stumped many of us, and the best explanation is that Saint Eustace of Christianity is frequently depicted playing a horn. In Lookout Landing, you may have found a perpetually sleeping NPC named Nappin, or one looking at a map named Atmos. Personally, it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that Addison is literally holding up advertisements. Piper's Animated Dance. Speaking of the Stable Trotters, the group's youngest member is Piper, a flute player you'll first come across at Highland Stable in the Faron region. When he jams with his bandmates, Piper has a unique playing animation where he'll stomp his feet back and forth. If you found this familiar, or at least odd, there's a reason for this. It's nearly identical to the animation used for the Skull Kids in Ocarina of Time. What's the meaning of this? We have no idea. But considering the in-game lore tells us these are the results of children wandering into the Lost Woods, we'd advise Piper to stay far away from the Great Hyrule Forest. Legend of the Great Sky Island. Some side quests are more easily missed than others. Legend of the Great Sky Island is found back at the tutorial area and hidden atop the Temple of Time, a place many likely never thought to look. There, you'll find a steward construct who offers Link a challenge. Light 3 campfires on nearby sky islands without touching the ground. Having the Zora armor is a must considering the many waterfalls. And you have 12 in-game hours, or 12 real-life minutes, to complete it. Once you do, the construct will tell you a brief story about the Great Sky Island, and give Link the Zonai fabric for his paraglider. Eyes of the Beholder. A Call from the Depths is a side quest that begins on the Great Plateau and takes Link to the depths. It has him go to 4 different areas where the stone eyes of a bargainer statue lie. He then has to toss them into nearby chasms and take them to their owner in the depths. The quest itself isn't very secret, but some players notice the placement of each chasm's location. They're the same spots as the tutorial shrines from Breath of the Wild, where Link earns his rune abilities. There's probably no significance to this, but it's a way to re-experience the starting area from the first game. Chronological Order. The Dragon's Tears are easier to find than the Memories of Breath of the Wild. Still, just like that game, it's extremely likely you're going to unlock these cutscenes out of order. But if you cared to, the game actually does give you the chronological sequence in which to experience them. The Geoglyph quest will take you to the Forgotten Temple fairly early. In fact, right after you get the first one. Here, you'll find a stone map of Hyrule as well as the geoglyphs depicted across the wall. Well, there's your order right there. You'd have to remember this brief moment and either return or take pictures, something I'm betting most of us didn't do. Full Circle. There are a ton of musical Easter eggs within Tears of the Kingdom, and the geoglyphs feature one of the most well-hidden ones. While ripping the game's soundtrack, Reddit user The Lazy Hydra noticed that while every geoglyph uses the same basic piece, they also each have a separate one that plays at the end before it loops back. These are only a few seconds long each, but by piecing them all together, you can hear the same notes as those in the melody of the game's main theme. It can be a bit hard to make out considering they use completely different instruments and a slower tempo, so we encourage you to take a listen yourself. But the notes are definitely there. Unaware Blade Master. While wearing the Yiga armor, members of the group will believe Link is one of their own, and so won't attack him. He can also get into their hideout, but should he remove his hood, he'll be tossed out and the clan will attempt to murder him as per usual. You can surprise most Yiga members this way, with there being one exception. The armor also gets access to the Yiga Blade Master Station, which houses a shrine quest. If you remove the mask while inside, the Blade Master will think you look familiar, but won't be able to place you. This is probably because it would be annoying to warp back to this shrine and be immediately forced to switch armor, but it's a funny interaction nonetheless. The Yiga and the Sheikah.
Oh!
Given their tumultuous history, certain members of the Sheikah also have some interesting reactions to Link's Yiga armor. While most NPCs speak to you normally, important ones will not take kindly to your fashion choices. At Lookout Landing, Purah will criticize you for dressing in poor taste, while Joshua will get scared and accuse you of trying to prank her. In Kakaro Village, Paya will tell you that, as leader, she can't be seen talking to someone dressed like you. Dorian will also call it poor taste, but has a far more interesting reaction if you sneak into his house while his daughters are asleep. He'll eventually show up, and at first, mistake Link for an assassin. Considering his wife was murdered by the Yiga, it's pretty mean-spirited, actually. The Kakaro Well. When not tormenting poor Dorian, you can head down the Kakaro Village well to learn a bit more about his family. Whether you go alone or follow his daughter Katla, the well holds a few neat Easter eggs. Some players noticed disturbing bloodstains on the walls, a possible reference to the bottom of the well mini-dungeon in Ocarina of Time. You can find a secret garden and diary left by Dorian's late wife, giving you recipes of her family's favorite meals. But if you ascend from the diary spot, you'll end up on a hill with a single silent princess. Since the flower is left at gravestones and monuments throughout the kingdom, it's a nice nod to the woman whose death left such an impact. Teachers' pets. There's a whole lot of wholesomeness to be had in Henno Village. 2 side quests see Link help out at the newly built school to the delight of the children. They're easy enough to finish and get you access to Uma, an NPC who tends a garden and grows crops for you.
Hi.
But afterwards, there's not really any reason to go back to the school unless you want to. If you do, you'll find a show of appreciation stuck to one of the walls. The children will have been so impressed with Link's lessons that they will have drawn a cute picture of themselves together. Mount Floria Cave. Look, there are a ton of caves in Tears of the Kingdom, and unless you frequently visit cherry blossom trees, it's likely you'll miss a few. One of the more well-hidden ones is the Mount Floria Cave. It actually serves as a great shortcut from the Farron region to the Necluda one, but both its entrances are a bit out of the way. While the one in the north is by the dead end of a river by Hickory Woods, the one in the Farron region is hidden behind the waterfall of Riola Spring. Always remember to check behind those waterfalls. The 8th Heroine's Puzzle. The Gerudo's 8th heroine puzzled a lot of players in Breath of the Wild. Thankfully, we got an answer in Tears of the Kingdom, but visiting her statue in the Gerudo Highlands is still worthwhile. The statue now has a giant gem on its chest, which Link must reflect light into using a mirror. Doing so will cause the gate where its face should be to rise, giving you access to a piece of the Tingle armor and a bubble frog. If you played Ocarina of Time, this sequence will undoubtedly remind you of the Spirit Temple, which, of course, was in the Gerudo region. There, Link had to use the Mirror Shield to solve a very similar puzzle. Mineru's Mask. In our first video, we talked about how if Link is wearing one of the Divine Helms, the corresponding Sage Spirit will wear the ancient version used by sages of the past. For a while, I wondered why Mineru, the 5th sage, was left out of the fun. But as some of you pointed out, she wasn't. Although there are only 4 Divine Helms, wearing the helm of the Zonite set produces a similar effect in Mineru. Not only is it a nice aesthetic change, but just like the others, wearing this increases her damage output. Mera Court homage. Of all the champions in Breath of the Wild, Mipha's death had perhaps the greatest impact on her people. In Tears of the Kingdom, we see that the Zora have built a monument to her on Ploymus Mountain. It's hard to tell until after you've cleared the sludge, but an aerial view of Mera Court shows its design is the same as the Zora symbol, 3 circles encompassed by scales. Also used as a symbol for Nehru, goddess of wisdom, this design was first seen in Ocarina of Time, although a little different, with the Zora's Sapphire. In a similar vein, just listen to the opening piano note of the area's music. It's the exact same as Ocarina's title theme. Helping a hidden Cuckoo. There are several NPCs in Tears of the Kingdom that seem like they should offer a side quest, but don't. One is Kaifa at the South Akala stable. She's a bit down in the dumps over her missing Cuckoo, who's too lonely to lay eggs on its own and whose sad squawks she can hear at night. This leads you to the stable's well, but after finding the Cuckoo there, you don't get the opportunity to tell Kaifa about it. Even if you do get the Cuckoo out, you won't get any kind of prompt, and Kaifa won't even react. What you're meant to do is put another Cuckoo down there, prompting the missing one to supply you with eggs whenever you return. Dubious Food Fixer. In case you missed our short on the matter, there's a well-hidden NPC who can turn your ruined meals into something far better. North of Kakariko Village lies Rikoka Hills, where you'll find some derelict houses. Down the nearby well is Matza, who, for the low price of 5 rupees, will turn either dubious or rock-hard food into monster stew. How many hearts the stew gives you depends on the ingredients you used in the initial dish. but it's definitely a spot worth marking on your map in case you mess up again. The White Sword of the Sky. With the Mother Goddess statue in the Forgotten Temple having fallen over, one quest sees Link restore it by offering a claw from the 3 main dragons at each goddess spring. This quest gets you the White Sword of the Sky, an obvious nod to Skyward Sword, but the quest itself is also a layered reference. In Skyward Sword, Link must eventually power up the Master Sword by tracking down 3 sacred flames, each one representing one of the golden goddesses. Afterwards, the Master Sword is fully awakened by Zelda. The 3 dragons in Tears of the Kingdom are named after the goddesses, and so act as stand-ins for sacred flames. While one game increases the power of Link's sword, the other gives him a new one. From pretenders to defenders.
Huh?
Across Hyrule, Link can help 3 groups of soldiers, twice each, in defeating a group of monsters. The Bring Peace quests are great in showing Hylians stand up for their home, but it's also interesting to see which NPCs Nintendo chose to lead these battles. All 3 were in Breath of the Wild. Tulin is found at the Tabantha Bridge stable, incapable of climbing to look for the nearby Great Fairy. Haz is a lone, self-made soldier patrolling the East Akala stable, and Flaxel is rescued by Link when she can't defend herself against monsters. The point being, they're all at weak points in the previous game, but have grown stronger and responsible enough to lead their own troops. Hometown Inspirations. After Breath of the Wild was released, director Hidemaru Fujibayashi revealed its map was partially inspired by his hometown of Kyoto, Japan. That's also where Nintendo headquarters are located, and so a new Easter egg was added on top of this for Tears of the Kingdom. Thanks to Reddit user Chubby Bub, we now know that the location of each shrine on the surface corresponds to a landmark in the real-life city. Nintendo also scrambled or removed letters of each landmark to name its shrines. For example, when both maps are laid on top of each other, the In-Isa Shrine of Hyrule Field, spelled I-N-I-S-A, lines up with the Sain train station of the downtown area, spelled S-A-I-I-N. Pretty clever, Nintendo. The Sage Symbols.
He is not someone you can stop by yourself. But you are not alone.
Each of the sages and each of their secret stones has a symbol that represents them. What some players may not have realized is that these are based on kanji, symbols in Japanese that represent specific words. In fact, each sage's corresponding kanji translates to the element or ability they each wield. Tulin is wind, Yunobo is fire, Sidon is water, Riju is lightning, Zelda is time, Minoru is spirit, and Rauru is light. Interestingly, when Ganondorf steals Sonia's stone, the symbol changes. Naturally, his corresponding kanji translates to gloom. The Buried Bargainer. By now, most realize that the depths are a reflection of the surface. One way in which it mirrors what's above is with Bargainer statues. You can find one underneath the Hylia statues of the world above. But something I didn't realize until recently has to do with the Bargainer found at the Great Abandoned Central Mine. This one is buried up to its neck, while others tower above Link. The Hylia statue above it is found on the Great Plateau, meaning it's at a slightly higher elevation point than most others. Having the Bargainer sink lower because of it was a subtle but clever design choice on Nintendo's part. Resource counterparts. The depths are a great place to find the game's new resources, especially bomb flowers, muddle buds, and puff shrooms. You can find them scattered everywhere, but you can also find them in specific spots. They can each be collected next to giant plants they share a resemblance with. Puff shrooms can be found next to gigantic mushrooms, bomb flowers next to trees with big bulbs on the top, and muddle buds next to trees with the same characteristic swirl. So if you see one of these giant plants on your travels, they signal what resources you can grab there. Fairies at Lover's Pond.
Hey!
After saving Lurelin Village, Link can talk to Numar about the painting in his house of Lover's Pond. Notably, it features fairies. He tells you it was done by Zelda, who used to visit the spot, but only at night.
Oh! Ah!
Sure enough, if you go to Lover's Pond during the day, you'll see no fairies. However, as soon as the clock strikes 5 p.m., they'll appear. It's important to note that they won't show up if you already have fairies in your inventory. No need to waste time waiting, like I did. A fearsome drawing. At certain stables across Hyrule, Link will hear rumors of a ferocious, horned beast and Princess Zelda's relation to it. Specifically, at Dueling Peaks stable, 2 children talk about it while one draws a paw print they found in the dirt. The so-called beasts in question are Don-Dons, the only herd of which Link can find near the lakeside stable in the Faron region. Afterwards, you can return to these children, and they'll change up their drawing based on Link's description, and give him a swift carrot for the news. Not much of a reward, but a cute interaction some may not have gone back for. The changing of the seasons. While Josh of the channel already made a short about this, it's a great detail players probably don't think about while traveling around Hyrule. A lot of time has obviously passed in between games, but Tears of the Kingdom also appears to be in a different season. This explains a lot of the new resources you can collect like tomatoes and elemental fruits, as well as the absence of others like durians. The sun is also at a different point in the sky, while cold locations need less protective gear than they did in Breath of the Wild.
Strong wind! Now!
That makes sense as cherry blossom trees are in full bloom, which happens during springtime in our world. Floral relation.
This one here is called the Silent Princess. It's a rare, endangered species.
This one's small, but nonetheless interesting. Another new resource in the game is the Sundelion, a flower primarily found on Sky Islands that can heal the gloom effect when cooked into meals. When looked at next to a Silent Princess, the two seem to be palette-swapped versions of each other. But Nintendo seemingly didn't do this on a whim, or because it was easier to design. The Silent Princess is closely linked to Zelda, while the Sundelion is linked to Queen Sonia. Since the two are related, albeit very, very distantly, it makes sense that their flowers would be so similar and yet so different.
I can feel your light power within her, as well as my time power. Additionally, I sense that we share a blood connection.
Flightless birds. Since one of the places they can be found is the Great Sky Island, the forest ostrich is one of the first animals you'll come into contact with in Tears of the Kingdom. Like many others, it will flee when startled and can be hunted for some meat. However, some players found their design quite similar to the Loftwings in Skyward Sword. They have a similar build and beak, and so many have theorized that these are the same species, just devolved over time to no longer fly. The fact that they can only be found on the Sky Islands only adds fuel to the fire. Secret Beta World. One of the newest discoveries we've come across is the existence of a secret beta world. While modding, YouTuber Waikuteru found themselves in a test area labeled Distance View, which they believe was used to test faraway objects. It's a mostly empty void with chunks of rock floating around. You can still use Zonai devices and Sage abilities while inside, and while there is no collision with most of the assets, there are invisible walls that will cut your travel short. It's unclear if there's another method for reaching this area, but we recommend checking out Waikuteru's video for yourself. Powerful Portable Pot. Players have found several alternative uses for the portable pot, such as using it to recharge Link's energy cell. But these things are also surprisingly powerful. When attached to an arrow, they can destroy an enemy's armor, saving you time, weapon durability, or from using a bomb. They also work on natural rock armor, like those of rock-likes, or just destroy a wall of boulders in your way. The unfortunate exception to this are Lynels. Firing a portable pot arrow at an armored version will only chip away. The Zonite Family Bow. The Zonite Bow is a pretty neat weapon. As Link readies an arrow, it draws from his energy cell, with the arrow flying farther depending on how long he holds it for. Its design also holds an Easter egg, one you might miss if not looking closely. Across the bow are miniature versions of the ancient sage masks: the gecko, camel, bird, and elephant. It makes total sense that Zonite weaponry would pay homage to the sages, given their importance in defeating the Demon King. And this is a nice detail that makes an already cool weapon even cooler. Draconic Homage. Of course, the Zonite bow isn't the only item to reference other characters. 3 devices you can unlock are the Flame, Frost, and Shock emitters, which can be fused to weapons and shields and added to whatever creation you like. They each look like the head of a dragon, and they purposely have different horns. That's because all 3 of them are specifically modeled after the 3 elemental dragons you can find: Dinral, Naedra, and Feroche. The Ember, Frostbite, and Charged armor sets are also of Zonai origin, and modeled after the dragons, leading many to believe the popular theory that the dragons were once Zonai. Under Pressure. Auto-build is an incredibly handy ability, keeping a log and letting you save a variety of different vehicles and creations. However, it also saves pieces that are not Zonai devices. One of the most useful things to save are the explosive rocks Marbled Goma uses in its boss fight. If Link fuses one to a weapon, takes it to Terrytown to get the rock removed, and then attaches something to it with Ultrahand, he will now have an endless supply of gigantic, highly volatile explosives, as long as you have the Zonite to build it. They're also extremely heavy. You can attach something flat to the bottom, like a piece of wood, turning it into a pressure plate that can kill most regular enemies instantly. Even if it doesn't, the explosion should do the trick. Quick Way Up. There are many ways to get around the absence of Rivali's Gale in Tears of the Kingdom. One way is with updrafts. Setting fire to a spicy pepper, or throwing a pine cone or some oil into a campfire will create a draft that Link can use to paraglide upwards. However, updrafts come in levels. The most powerful one players have managed to create is by using 4 piles of wood. Setting fire to them automatically creates the updraft, and when you enhance it with a pine cone or oil, it creates one seriously mighty breeze. Dangerous Delicacy. Whenever Link vanquishes a Phantom Ganon, it will drop special weapons and dark clumps. Also purchased at Bargainer Statues, these disturbing resources pulsate much like monster guts, but are wrapped in special paper. These are likely meant to be Ofuda, cards seen in Shinto and Buddhist religions of Japan used to ward off evil and misfortune. Since dark clumps come from vile spirits but bring out a gloom-resistant effect in recipes, having Ofuda attached seems like a necessity. However, why they already come pre-attached is a mystery. This isn't the first time Zelda has included Ofuda. They also held the mini-boss Death Sword in place in Twilight Princess. Marvelous minigame music. Nintendo loves to include musical Easter eggs in Zelda, almost as much as fans love discovering them. There are a ton of minigames to find across Hyrule, some of which play different tracks. Whether you helped Junie collect her plushies, played Ultra Ball Hall for Modar, or trained with Ornest and Tabalt, the specific track for these games may have sounded familiar to you. The main hook uses notes from certain minigame themes in Twilight Princess, as well as some found in Ocarina of Time. I will never tire of seeing Nintendo pay homage to past classics through music. Taking your shot. If you're not the type of player to chat with every single NPC, you might miss out on some special interactions. During Riju's chapter, Link will have to defend Gerudo Town from swarms of Gibdos, part of which means choosing where to place sword and spear-wielding troops, as well as Barda, who uses a cannon. When the town returns to normal, Link can find Barda in the training area, where she'll tell him they should fire off a round in celebration. Interacting with the cannon will do just that, leading to a pretty silly interaction between Barda and some understandably pissed off Gerudo. Prelude to Minoru. It's eventually revealed that Minoru, King Raru's sister and the fifth sage, separated her spirit from her body. She resided in the Purah pad for thousands of years until it was time to team up with Link, then moving into the body of a construct. Nintendo included some pretty clever foreshadowing of a secret sage linked to the device that most of us probably didn't pick up on. When Link is given the Purah pad during the opening, it's kept with a piece of fabric. Although incredibly faded, it's the same fabric that makes up Minoru's scarf, which can clearly be seen in flashbacks that feature her.
It is quite an interesting device. This is definitely not from this era.
Yiga armor reactions. In one of our past videos, we talked about how certain members of the Yiga and Sheikah react to Link's Yiga armor set. But there are a whole lot more we didn't cover. Many players were delighted to find that the Yiga don't attack Link when he's dressed like them, even when they're disguised as Evermeans. However, Impa can tell you this fact early on. The Gerudo will toss Link straight into jail for wearing the offensive gear while inside the town, but if you wear the set at the Karakara Bazaar, shopkeepers will refuse to sell to you, while soldiers will threaten to murder you. If you want to hear something nice about the armor, head to Cece, who's actually delighted by the authenticity. Don't think it will get you out of the Master Koga fights, though. Unlike his underlings, he knows who hides behind the mask. The Trolliest Chest. Hyrule Castle holds a lot of treasure, but there's one chest that's seemingly only there to mess with you. The chest in question is directly underneath the floating fortress, sitting in a very small room surrounded by rocks that annoyingly stick out of the bottom. Not only is it a pain to spot and reach, but all you get for your frustration is a royal broadsword, a pretty common weapon. Ascending from this spot does put you in Zelda's room, where you can find some much better weapons and the Royal Guard cap. But it's more than possible, and far easier, to reach this room through other methods. And the worst part? If you set your sensor to look for treasure chests, it will pick this one up while you're exploring the castle, and likely drive you mad. Coming home. We've talked about a ton of great musical Easter eggs in past videos. So what's one more? After completing the main Terrytown quest, Link will gain access to his very own home. Whether you warp there or wake up there, seasoned Zelda players will recognize the notes of this area's theme. They're the same notes from the house theme in many older games, just slowed down a bit. That music has been used so many times, it made us feel all warm and fuzzy the first time we heard it. So it's perfect for Link's new restful spot. These old bones. Link can find and collect numerous paraglider fabrics across the game, and then take them to the Henno Village dye shop to switch things up. The owner can also make fabric based on pictures of certain monsters. One is the Stalnox, the skeletal version of the Hinox, and its fabric has a small but cool reference to its nature. Stalnoxes are only active at night, being motionless piles of bones during the day. Similarly, the Stalnox paraglider fabric features a pile of bones. But if you're gliding at night, the design is of the full monster, glowing in the dark. Too tired to care. There are plenty of NPCs to find and chat with in Tears of the Kingdom, but no matter who they are, they'll all react defensively if Link takes out a weapon and starts swinging. There is one wonderfully silly exception to this: Senna. The wife of the dye shop owner, Sage, Senna works such long hours she always looks on the verge of collapse. Therefore, she's just too tired to react if Link tries to attack her. You'll get no reaction out of her, even if you're attacking with explosives. Now that's someone who needs a vacation. The Secret Yiga. This one's more of a theory than an Easter egg, but it's interesting nonetheless. Keeping with the Henno Village dye shop, there are many players who believe Sage, the owner, to be a secret member of the Yiga clan. That's because the voice lines of Sage, or rather the comical screams and cackles, sound almost identical to those of some Yiga foot soldiers. Well, I suppose the Yiga are entitled to normal lives and day jobs too, and it would explain who made all the group's uniforms before they started kidnapping random tailors. The library's treasure. Although it's not as vital a location as it was in Breath of the Wild, there are still a lot of chests to find in Hyrule Castle. One that many may have missed lies in the castle's library. There are torches by both entrances, 4 of which are not lit. Since there are others near them that are, many probably didn't think to light them, despite many past Zelda puzzles having Link light torches. Setting fire to these will cause a chest to appear, which holds a very rare gold rupee, worth $300. Calling for backup. Just like in Breath of the Wild, players will usually find Wizrobes by themselves. They don't take too much effort to kill, and will grant elemental rods on defeat. However, if you kill them quickly, you miss this Easter egg. If enough time passes while fighting, Wizrobes will eventually summon a minor enemy of the same elemental type. Electric ones can even cause lightning storms. It's a neat feature many may miss since these Wizrobes are easy to kill quickly. Plus, it's a nice callback to Wind Waker, where the Wizrobe mini-boss could summon other foes to fight Link. Gloom weapons. When you defeat a Phantom Ganon, there are a few possible weapons it will drop. The melee weapons are pretty strong, but they siphon away Link's health while he uses them, similar to if he were standing in a pool of gloom. Not wanting their weapons to kill them, many players figured out that fusing Phantom Ganon's weapons to their own negated the effect. However, these weapons will never kill Link. The effect automatically ceases when he gets down to 1 heart. Most would probably heal before this happens. You still have to worry about an enemy knocking off that final heart, but it's nice to know the weapons won't outright murder you. More bang for your buck. Whenever Link activates a Zonai device or build, it will turn off once he gets too far away. This was done in a way to preserve his energy cell, but sometimes you need the device to stay active, or have the ability to be activated from far away. We all know that the Zonai battery can power a device for a brief period before Link has to use his energy cell. However, these batteries also expand the distance to which Link can be from his creations and have them remain on. So if you want to send in a death machine and stay far from the conflict, batteries are your best friend. Endless Master Sword Beams. Link is eventually able to get the Champion's Leathers in Hyrule Castle, a new version of his light blue tunic from the first game. While you don't get to see the exact health numbers of enemies like its predecessor, it does come with a great boost after being fully upgraded. It, along with the Tunic of Memories, will let Link shoot beams from the Master Sword without his health being full. It takes a lot of resources and it isn't part of a set, so fully upgrading it is something some players may never do. But sword beams at any time is definitely a nice prize. Distance Hoverstones. Hoverstones are undeniably helpful, acting as floating platforms Link can place to reach new areas. For a long time, I'd simply set them out, activate them, and use Ultrahand to move them wherever I needed them. But there is a much faster way to place a hoverstone in the right spot. If you fuse one to a weapon, ideally a spear or a boomerang, and then throw that weapon, the hoverstone will activate several feet from where Link stands. Not only that, but the weapon will drop to the ground, allowing you to use it again. It may be small, but it's definitely convenient. Weaponized bees. We're sure many players already know this secret mechanic, but it's just too cool not to talk about. Link can fuse a great many things to his weapons for a variety of effects, but I don't think any of us expected him to produce his own bee minions. Well, that's just what happens when coarser bee honey is attached to a weapon. The bees don't deal much damage, but it's still a lot of fun to have them sting your enemies. It's also a fitting outcome. This Link isn't the first to have bees watch his back in a fight. Bursting the Molduga's Bubble. Moldugas may have seemed intimidating in Breath of the Wild until we figured out you could use the Bomb Rune to easily lure them out and blow them to smithereens. However, the Bomb Rune isn't in Tears of the Kingdom, and so players have had to find alternative methods. One of our favorites involves using Sidon's Water Shield ability. It blocks the first attack that hits Link no matter the source, but the Molduga will still launch him into the air like normal. When he's not taking damage, that's actually a good thing as he could then activate Bullet Time and pepper the enemy with damage. Play your cards right, and Moldugas will never damage Link again. Alternative currency. Mostly found on Sky Islands, Link can earn new Zonai devices by placing Zonai charges inside giant dispensers. What items you'll get depends entirely on the dispenser you're using. However, if you'd like to preserve charges, the machines will take a different currency, Construct Horns. The return rate is not nearly as good, unfortunately, and it's better to save those horns for upgrading armor and making weapons. But for those unaware of this little trick, the horns will work in a pinch if you don't have the charges to spare. Homing technique. Inside the Yiga clan's hideout, Link can learn the Earthquake technique. As long as he doesn't have a weapon equipped, this allows him to punch the ground, sending out a small geyser of air towards an enemy where a spiky rock will erupt from beneath them. Most players may use this when fighting one-on-one, or just panic use it after a weapon breaks. But despite the destructive technique, it can be used stealthily. Earthquake doesn't just go to the enemy in front of you. It has a homing feature. This way you can find a hiding spot, let loose a tremor, and it will bend towards the closest foe. The enemy of my enemy. Ever since A Link to the Past, players and Cuckoos have been trapped in an endless war. It's such ridiculous fun seeing the little birds call in an army after being hit too much that it's almost worth Link dying for. But here, the Cuckoos actually try to warn Link of possible danger, at least where the Yiga are concerned. If Link is holding a Cucco near a disguised member of the evil clan, it will start to squawk and flap its wings madly. It's not as if the Yiga are that tough, but it's still cool that someone at Nintendo cared enough to program this reaction. Tasty treat. The Yiga like to think themselves clever, as if setting out a bunch of mighty bananas is actually a good trap for Link. You'll find places all over Hyrule with a single bundle on the ground. Trying to pick it up will naturally cause the Yiga to strike. However, if you're the type of player to mess with the clan, which you absolutely should be, you should set fire to the bananas. This still causes the Yiga to attack, but it's a funny reaction regardless. If you're dressed as one of them, they'll still be mad, but it will deactivate the trap. You can then grab the toasted bananas and be on your merry way. Spotted horses. There are several varieties of horses to obtain in Tears of the Kingdom, and the different types all have different stats. Spotted horses, for example, are easier to tame than solid-colored ones, but don't have as good of ratings. However, when you begin the game, you won't find any spotted horses at all. That's because they don't appear in the world until after you complete the quest, Spotting Spot. This is given to you by Lester at Lookout Landing, after you've completed your first dungeon. Only after finding the old man's horse will those like it start appearing in herds. But with so many Zonai vehicle builds, it's likely something most players won't notice. Powerful lightning. Every sage's ability benefits you. It just takes finding the right time and place to use them. Riju's lightning adds a mighty wallop to one of Link's arrows. But tracking any of the sages down in combat can be annoying, and this isn't the only benefit her ability gives you. Her electricity can also break mineable rocks as well as breakable rock walls found in caves. Most probably use bombs, hammer-type weapons, or Yunobo's ability to break anything, but knowing that Riju's ability works just as well can save you some resources. Missing a fortune. Although there are many, and I do mean many treasure chests in Tears of the Kingdom, there are some that can be permanently missed. This can happen when you reach certain points in the story. One of the biggest groups of chests that are possible to miss this way can be found in the Elden region's depths. There are 11 chests hidden within Gloom Rocks that must be broken using Yunobo's ability. However, once you beat the Fire Temple, all these Gloom Rocks will disappear, and their treasure will disappear with them. The Power of 5. Tears of the Kingdom seems to place a lot of emphasis on the number 5, as well as hands. Let me explain. During the opening, Raru's hand falls away from Ganondorf's body, which not only frees him, but causes 5 streams of gloom to erupt from his body, 1 for each finger. Some have theorized that these streams could represent the 5 challenges or bosses waiting for Link at each of the Sage dungeons. Of course, Link gaining the new disembodied hand majorly plays into the story and gameplay. And then you have the Gloom Spawn, which not only take the form of the most disturbing hands ever, but also appear in the overworld in groups of 5. Are there any other Easter eggs in Tears of the Kingdom you haven't seen anyone mention? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more great Zelda videos.
Let's go solve this mystery.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.